heard a lot of people in like the conservative libertarian circle say, well, the Overton window has just shrunk so much. It's just shrunk so much. You can't say anything, da, 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 da. And I think that's not true. And I think that it's way more complicated than that in a thing that'll feed a future thing. Let's think about it in terms of speech. And again, I want to think about it in terms of the direction of criticisms, okay? And what you are allowed. So let's try to hone in on what you're allowed to say about people you disagree with, okay? Mm-hmm. Or just what type of criticisms or ideas you're allowed or not allowed to bring up generally. So the first one, I think, is right. Whenever conservatives and libertarians say, I just can't say anything. I can't say, are the police systemically racist? I don't know. Because I just can't think. I get called racist. So the first window we'll say is acceptable criticism in the direction of the left. Okay. Does that make sense? If you're aiming your criticism in the direction of a left-leaning narrative, it's very, very small. In fact, this is probably way too big. I'm not trying to be facetious. What would you put in that window? What is a viable and non-controversial, won't be met with hate criticism that you could make in the direction of the left?
I can make one that is, you are not woke enough, but that still is a criticism that heads in that direction. So if we were to break it down into a criticism that would pull them back from not going further left or toward the center or to the right, certainly you can't do it toward the right, but even pulling it toward the center, that seems to be falling outside the Overton window. So it seems like whatever you can put in there, as long as it pushes them further left, it seems like it might be acceptable. Depending
That's
on
exactly right. That's good. Have you heard James Lindsay talk about that before? He has this really interesting thing that he says about how what makes critical theory so dangerous is that any criticisms of it have to push it further to the left. So the only criticisms it will listen to don't actually make it stronger and make it worse. And so that's exactly what you're saying. Mm-hmm. So the criticisms that would go against any left-leaning narratives are very small, unless they're pushing it further to the left. I think that's exactly right. Okay. Now, here's the other one. If you were to say, how big is the window of criticisms against anything against anything that isn't in the left-wing narrative? Are there boundaries?
Nearing infinite.
I think so. That's why I put infinity symbol, right? And an arrow to the left and to the right. Mm-hmm. They can infinitely criticize anything or anyone that opposes, a set of narratives. And let's be a little specific here. So there's this thing that I call flow, far left orthodoxy. And so it'd be anything on the general progressive type leftist talking points about how fundamentally evil everything is, and the white privilege, systemic racism, gender is a social construct. What else am I missing? The internalized misogyny and bigotry. What else?
Gender roles.
Anything like that. So anything, and I'm not saying anything negative about those things. I'm just saying those are the general things that are pushed or are discussed. Any type of gun control stuff. So if you say, well, I don't know if the gun statistics really back up banning AR-15s, most are committed with handguns, that'd be in that same. So what we're saying is any opposition to that, there is no limit. So what do you do where you have actually, that's probably not the best place for that. What do you do when you have an asymmetrical relationship between what would be considered acceptable, not just criticisms, but even malicious type things? So for those of you that can't see on my whiteboard, I drew a line, maybe about a centimeter from the edge of one side. And so on this side, we'll say this is I'm not even going to bother writing stuff. This side represents not flow. and everything over here represents flow. I know that it's going to be backwards, but whatever. So if
it's
you're
not backwards now. It must have been your live streaming is backwards. It's fine now.
Holla! Yes. Okay. Anyway, so of what these people can say over here is virtually nothing, really. Mm-hmm. And what this group can say to this group is limitless. So what I wanted to tease out, the first part is, I don't think we spend enough time looking at the social consequences of having an asymmetrical relationship of criticisms, and also of even what you're allowed to say that wouldn't even be productive, but just insulting. That what happens when you have an asymmetrical relationship there. So there's a book called The Power of Bad, and it writes all about the negativity effect. And one of the things that he writes about is about how there's a positive to negative ratio. And in my job, I see this with students that we work with. You have to maintain a certain positive to corrective ratio if you want to, you think about it as you're making emotional deposits by having positive interactions, so that whenever you have to make a criticism or a correction, it does make a withdrawal. But if you've deposited enough into the relationship, you're able to make those criticisms and they're well received. Whereas if all anyone receives is just negative, what are the ramifications? Well, people get divorced. That's the ramifications, as one example. So I would like to tease out, if it's okay with you, what are the social and cultural consequences of having this kind of asymmetrical relationship for criticisms, and not just that, but for it's not just criticisms. Like I said, the left can say whatever they want about people that don't disagree. And I say people that don't disagree because I'm not talking about a left-right thing. I'm talking about the far left and what they can say about someone like Ellen DeGeneres if she says, be nice to people, what they can say. I mean, they say horrible things about Barack Obama because they don't like Barack Obama. The far left, the ones steering the ship right now for the policy and for the ideology. Okay, they can say horrible, Medium, the writing platform, suggested an article to me yesterday, said Donald Trump is a Nazi, full stop. There's no conversation to be had from that. So all I'm saying is that if there's no limit and no bounds on where, not just criticisms, but just the types of things you can say about them, and that only goes in one direction, what do you think are the long-term social consequences that takes on a country and its social fabric?